My brother scheduled his birthday party the night before my wedding. My parents chose him over me. But when they showed up at my house at 4 a.m. screaming and threatening, I got a restraining order they never saw coming and it broke them. I'm 31 years old, work in sales for a software company, and I need to tell this story because I still can't believe my own family did what they did. Basically, my parents decided to skip my wedding to go to my brother Julian's birthday party. And what started as something incredibly hurtful ended with a restraining order, and, honestly, I don't know if I'll ever forgive them for all of this. I guess I should start from the beginning so it makes sense. Julian is my younger brother. He's 28 now, and he's always been, I don't know how to say this without sounding cruel, but he's always been like the problem child of the family. Not in a delinquent way or anything like that, but more like the type of person who always needs to be the center of attention, and if he's not, he creates huge drama until he gets it. When we were kids, it was different. I mean, we had our normal brother fights, but as we grew up, he started becoming increasingly competitive with me in super weird ways. If I got a new job, he'd suddenly announce he'd started some incredible freelance project. If I bought a car, he'd rent a better one just to show it off on Instagram. Stuff like that, immature things that at first I tried to ignore. The truth is, our relationship deteriorated over the years, especially after I turned like 27 or 28. There were several incidents, nothing super dramatic at the time, but they kept accumulating. Like that time my parents organized a family dinner to celebrate my promotion at work, and Julian showed up an hour late because he'd forgotten and then spent the entire dinner talking about his own projects. Or when I turned 30 and he posted on social media the same day, this super long post about how he was achieving all his goals at 27 and basically eclipsed my birthday completely. My parents never said anything to him. Like they always had an excuse for him. That he's young, that he's finding his way, that I should be more understanding because I'm the older brother. By the time I met Nicole, my now wife, I was already pretty emotionally distant from Julian. It's not that we hated each other or anything. We just weren't close, and I'd accepted we probably never would be. Nicole is amazing, truly. Meeting her was like breathing fresh air after years of dealing with family drama. We met like 3 years ago at a work networking event, started dating, and basically after 6 months, I already knew I wanted to marry her. She saw the whole dynamic with Julian and my parents from the outside and would tell me, "It's not normal that you always have to minimize your achievements, so your brother doesn't feel bad." But I was so used to it, I didn't even realize I was doing it. We got engaged like a year and a half ago. It was super romantic. I took her to this fancy restaurant on the beach and the whole deal. When I told my parents, they were happy. At least it seemed that way. Though my mom immediately started with comments like, "I hope Julian finds someone soon too," as if my engagement was a competition. Julian didn't say anything when he found out. Literally just responded to the family group message with a thumbs up emoji. Nicole thought it was weird, but I told her it was typical of him. We started planning the wedding and decided to have it at this beautiful hotel like 8 hours from where we live, in the mountains, because both Nicole and I love that place, and we wanted something intimate but nice. The date we chose was a Saturday this year. Like everything was confirmed months ago. Deposits paid, invitations sent, everything. My parents knew the date from the beginning, obviously, and Julian too, because he was in all the family chats where we talked about the wedding. This is where everything went to hell. 2 weeks before my wedding. 2 weeks. Julian sent digital invitations to the whole family for his 28th birthday party. And guess when he scheduled it? Friday night, literally the night before my wedding. The invitation said it was going to be in the city where we live, like 8 hours from where my wedding would be the next day. When I saw that, I honestly thought it was a joke or a mistake. Because who does that? Who schedules their birthday party the night before their brother's wedding when they know the family has to travel? I messaged him immediately asking what was up. Like I literally wrote, "Julian, you realize your party is the night before my wedding, and everyone's going to have to choose or be at your party until late, and then drive 8 hours to get to my wedding, right?" His response was something like, "It's my birthday, and I want to celebrate it with my family. I didn't know you owned the entire weekend." I just stared at my phone, unable to believe it. I explained that it wasn't that I owned the weekend, but that literally everyone had RSVP'd to my wedding months ago, and that he could perfectly well celebrate his birthday any other weekend, before or after. He just stopped responding. I called my parents, thinking they were going to talk to him, that they were going to tell him he was being ridiculous and petty. My dad answered, and when I explained the situation, his response was, "Well, Samuel, it's his birthday. We can't tell him not to celebrate it." I was like, "Seriously? Don't you see this is clearly intentional?" My mom got into the conversation and said I was being selfish, that Julian just wanted a small party with his family, and that I was making drama out of nothing. I reminded them that my wedding had been planned for months, that Julian could literally celebrate any other day, but my mom just kept saying I'd always been jealous of Julian and that now that he wanted some attention, I couldn't stand it. That hurt, I'm not going to lie. The conversation got worse and worse, with my dad saying that Julian would be very hurt if they didn't go to his party, and that I should understand that as the older brother, I had to be more mature. More mature. As if organizing a birthday party to sabotage your brother's wedding was something you had to tolerate in the name of maturity. I asked them directly, "So you're going to go to his party instead of my wedding?" And there was an awkward silence before my mom said, "We have to be there for your brother. Samuel, I hope you understand." I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it then, and I still don't understand it now. I hung up the phone, and Nicole found me, basically shaking with rage. I told her everything, and she was just as shocked as I was. I spent the next few days trying to process what was happening. Part of me thought maybe my parents would come to their senses, that they'd realize how absurd the situation was and change their minds. But as the days passed and the wedding approached, it became clear that wasn't going to happen. On Friday, the day of Julian's party and the day we should have all been traveling to the hotel for the wedding, my parents posted photos on Facebook at Julian's birthday party. There were like 15 people there, maybe 20 max. Most of them Julian's friends, who weren't even invited to my wedding. None of my cousins went, none of my uncles, basically none of the family that mattered. All of them traveled that Friday to the hotel where my wedding would be because, they're normal people who respect commitments made months in advance. Saturday was my wedding. I'm not going to lie, the morning was horrible. I woke up knowing my parents weren't going to be there and I felt, empty somehow. Nicole was incredible. She and my in-laws and my cousins and my uncles, everyone supported me so much. My cousin Daniel, who's always been more like a brother to me than Julian, was my best man, and in his speech, he said something super emotional about the family you choose versus the family you get. And honestly, I almost started crying right there. The wedding was beautiful. Nicole looked amazing. The venue was perfect. The food delicious. Everything turned out exactly as we'd planned. We had like 120 guests, and everyone was there celebrating with us, dancing, having a good time. But there was a hole, like that absence you couldn't ignore even if you tried. In the family photos, my parents weren't there. At dinner, their places weren't set. And every time someone asked me where they were, I had to explain the situation and see their faces of shock and disbelief. During the reception, like when we were already at the dancing and everything, my phone started ringing. It was my mom. I hesitated whether to answer, but finally did and moved away from the noise. My mom was crying, saying the family was treating them and Julian horribly, that everyone had abandoned them at the party and now nobody was talking to them, that I had turned the whole family against them, and that Julian was devastated because his birthday party had been a total failure. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "Mom, it's my wedding. I'm at my reception right now. And you're calling me to tell me Julian is sad because nobody went to his party that he specifically scheduled to ruin my day?" She started yelling at me that I'd always been an ungrateful son, that Julian needed me, and I'd turned my back on him. I hung up. Nicole saw my face when I came back and asked what happened. I told her and she was furious. She said, "You need to set boundaries with them, Samuel. This is emotional abuse." She was right, but I was still in shock, like my brain couldn't fully process what had happened. I tried to enjoy the rest of the night and I sort of managed, but that call definitely affected me. The next few days were weird. I started getting messages from cousins and uncles telling me my parents and Julian were posting things on social media about how disappointed they were in the family, insinuating I'd done something terrible but without saying exactly what. Some posts were super vague, like, "It's sad when you discover who's really there for you," with photos of the three of them together. It was manipulative and pathetic. I decided I needed to set everything straight, once and for all. I wrote a long email, and when I say long, I mean like 3 pages, explaining the entire situation chronologically. I started from the wedding invitation sent months ago, then Julian's birthday invitation sent 2 weeks before with the date specifically chosen to conflict, the conversations I had with my parents asking them to intervene, their decision to go to the party instead of my wedding, and finally the call during my reception. I sent it to all the extended family, like cousins, uncles, grandparents, everyone. I didn't add opinions or drama, just the facts as they happened with the dates and everything. The responses started coming almost immediately. My cousins were outraged. My Aunt Carmen wrote me, saying she knew Julian had always been problematic. But this was another level. My uncle, Roberto, literally said my parents were being assholes. Sorry for the language, but those were his exact words. One by one, all my extended family started cutting off communication with my parents and Julian completely. Nobody answered their calls, nobody responded to messages. Basically, they were socially isolated. Looking back, that's probably what pushed them to completely lose their minds. Like a week after my email, my parents and Julian sent their own mass email to the family saying I was a liar, that I'd manipulated the story, that they'd had valid reasons for not going to the wedding, that they couldn't share for privacy reasons. But basically, I was a bad person, and the family was being manipulated by me. They didn't give any specific details or evidence of anything, just vague and dramatic accusations. The family didn't believe them. In fact, several cousins responded to the email defending me and basically telling them to stop the drama and accept the consequences of their actions. That apparently made things escalate more. Julian started sending me direct messages saying I'd ruined his life, that because of me, the whole family hated him, that I was a horrible brother and he'd never forgive me. I blocked him. My parents tried calling me like 1,000 times, but I didn't answer any. Like 2 weeks later, a Tuesday, if I remember correctly, my dad sent me a message saying we needed to have a conference call, the 4 of us, them, Julian and me, to resolve things. I really didn't want to, but Nicole told me maybe it was good to have one final conversation and make everything clear, like close that chapter. I agreed, thinking maybe, just maybe, they were going to apologize or at least acknowledge they'd messed up. The call was a nightmare. It started with my mom crying, saying the whole family had abandoned them and they felt alone and betrayed. Julian said his social life was destroyed because nobody was talking to him. My dad said I needed to send another email to a family explaining it had been a misunderstanding and they hadn't done anything wrong. I was like, "What? Are you asking me to lie for you after everything you did?" My mom started screaming that it was my responsibility as a son to help them, that they'd raised me and I owed them this. Julian added that if I really loved them, I'd fix this because he was suffering a lot. I told them no. I told them they'd made the decision to skip my wedding. They decided to support Julian's toxic behavior, and the consequences were theirs, not mine. I told them I wasn't going to lie to the family or manipulate the situation to make them look good when they'd clearly acted wrong. My dad started yelling at me that I was an ungrateful son. My mom said I'd regret this, and Julian said something like he was going to make me pay for ruining his life. I hung up the call, shaking. Nicole hugged me and told me I'd done the right thing. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought they'd finally understand it wasn't going to give in, and they'd leave me alone. I was wrong. Like a week later, a Monday at 4 inches the morning, Nicole and I woke up to a noise outside the house. At first I thought it was a cat or something, but then we heard yelling. I looked out the window, and there were my parents and Julian in the front yard, screaming my name and banging on the door aggressively. I put on some sweatpants and went downstairs, my heart beating super fast. I opened the door just a little and asked them what the hell they were doing there at 4 inches the morning. My mom pushed the door trying to get in, saying they needed to talk to me right now. My dad was red in the face, yelling that I'd destroyed his family. Julian was in the back saying things like, "This is your fault. Everything is your fault." I tried to close the door, but they kept pushing and yelling. The neighbors started turning on lights. Nicole called the police. I stayed at the door, blocking them, telling them to leave or the police would come. They wouldn't stop, like they were completely unhinged. My mom was crying hysterically. My dad threatening to break down the door. Julian recording everything, with his phone saying he was going to show everyone how I treated them. It was surreal and terrifying. The police arrived in like 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. 2 patrol cars. The officers talked to them first, then to me. I explained the entire situation, showed them Julian's threatening messages, told them about the wedding and all the context. The officers were super professional. They told my parents and Julian they had to leave immediately, or they'd be arrested for disturbing the peace and trespassing. My dad tried to argue, but the officers were firm. Eventually, they left in their car, Julian yelling from the window that this wasn't over. That morning, when the sun came up and Nicole and I were drinking coffee trying to process what had happened, she told me we needed legal protection. That this had crossed a line, and it would probably get worse. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew she was right. We contacted a lawyer that same day, a guy recommended by my cousin Daniel who works in legal. The lawyer, whose name was Marcus, listened to the whole story and reviewed all the messages, emails, and the police report from the 4 a.m. incident. He told us we had more than enough grounds to request a restraining order against all 3. He explained the order could prohibit them from approaching us, our house, or attempting to contact us in any way. Honestly, I didn't want it to come to that. Like, part of me still had hope things would calm down, but Nicole and Marcus convinced me it was necessary for our safety. We filed the request with all the documentation. We had to go to a hearing where a judge reviewed the case. My parents and Julian were also there with their own lawyer, and it was super awkward and sad. Seeing my parents on the other side of a courtroom, angry at me, was one of the most painful experiences of my life. During the hearing, their lawyer tried to argue it had all been a family misunderstanding, and I was exaggerating. But the judge reviewed the police report, the threatening messages, and basically the entire pattern of behavior. The judge asked my parents directly why they'd gone to my house at 4 a.m., and my mom started crying, saying they just wanted to talk to me. The judge pointed out that didn't justify the harassment and that police had to intervene. He asked Julian about the threatening messages, and Julian got defensive, saying, I'd taken it out of context. The judge didn't look convinced. In the end, the judge granted the restraining order for 2 years. 2 years during which my parents and Julian can't come within 200 meters of Nicole or me, can't come to our house, can't contact us by phone, email, social media, or any other means. If they do, they can be arrested. When the judge gave his decision, my mom started sobbing, and my dad looked at me with so much hatred it gave me chills. Julian just shook his head, as if I were the villain of this story. It's been like 3 months since all that. The restraining order is still in effect, and, honestly, I've needed it. Julian tried to contact me from fake Instagram accounts twice, and we had to report it. My parents told my aunt I'd betrayed them, and they'd never forgive me. Part of my extended family, the ones who supported me from the beginning, still aren't talking to them either. Like the family division is real and deep. Nicole and I are finally going on our honeymoon next week. Yeah, like 4 months after the wedding, because with all the legal and emotional drama we couldn't go before. We're going to Greece. Something we'd been planning since we got engaged. I'm excited, but there's also a sadness there. You know, because I never imagined my family wouldn't be part of this chapter of my life. My cousins have been incredible. Daniel comes over for dinner often and has basically adopted me as his official brother. My Aunt Carmen calls Nicole every week to see how we're doing. That support network has been the only thing keeping me sane through all this. Nicole has been my rock. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done without her. Do I regret going as far as getting the restraining order? Sometimes I wonder, like at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I should have handled things differently. But then I remember my mom pushing my door at 4 a.m., Julian's messages telling me he was going to make me pay, and I know I had no other choice. They escalated this to the point where my safety and Nicole's were at risk. The saddest part is, all this started with Julian being an insufferable, petty person about a birthday party. 1. Birthday. Party. That's what destroyed my relationship with my parents and my brother. Well, that and years of them allowing and reinforcing his toxic behavior, I guess. Looking back, I see the pattern so clearly. How they always excused everything he did, how they always minimized my feelings, how they never set boundaries. Last week, I was organizing wedding photos for the album we're having made, and there was a photo of Nicole and me, dancing, super happy, surrounded by cousins and friends. And I realized that photo captured something important. That real family isn't just the one that shares your blood, but the one that chooses to be there for you in the important moments. And those people were there. My parents and Julian chose not to be. I don't know if I'll ever have a relationship with them again. The restraining order expires in like a year and a half, and technically after that they could try to contact me, but honestly, I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I can forgive what they did, not just skipping my wedding, but everything that came after. The lies, the manipulation, the harassment. Nicole says, I have every right to protect my peace of mind, and if that means they're not part of my life, then so be it. I guess I'm in a place where I've accepted things are the way they are. It hurts, I'm not going to lie. There are days when I see other people with their families, and I feel like a hole in my chest. But there are also days when I feel free. Like free from the toxicity, free from having to walk on eggshells, free from having to minimize myself so Julian doesn't feel bad. And those good days are starting to be more frequent than the bad ones. The honeymoon is going to be good. We're going to Santorini for a week. We already have everything planned, the tours, the restaurants, everything. Nicole is super excited, and so am I, honestly. It'll be the first time in months we can just relax and enjoy without all this weight on us. And I think that's what I need right now. Space to just be happy with my wife without all the family drama. So yeah, that's my story. My brother organized a birthday party to sabotage my wedding. My parents supported him. And eventually, things escalated so much. I had to get a restraining order against all three. It's crazy when you say it like that, right? But it's my reality now. And I'm managing it the best I can, one day at a time, with the support of the people who did choose to be there for me when it really mattered.